Hello, today is July 18th, 2013, and you are listening to I Think You Think, a podcast that puts a new spin on debate and discussion. I'm Justin, and on the other side of my computer screen is James.
Howdy, folks.
And Sequoia.
Hi.
And we are your hosts and carry no credentials worth noting. I Think You Think is a podcast that focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. Too many times we spend debates and discussions talking past one another and not enough time trying to learn and understand why someone thinks what they think. This is what makes I Think You Think different, because we are focused on why people think the way that they do and why we think the way that we do. James, Sequoia, and I believe that the forum of ideas should be open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. We are not here to pass judgment, but merely discuss ideas and topics. This podcast, first and foremost, is a conversation between us and hopefully you. Feel free to email us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and at the Chicago Now blogs. The links are in the underbar, but they are also, you can type fast or write fast, facebook.com/ithink.youthink, chicagonow.com/I-think-you-think, and then on Twitter we're at ithink_youthink. I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions and is recorded live at Fisher International Studios. Our topic today is Westboro Baptist Church and all of the things that will entail. So, James is already all worked up. We had to actually douse him with cold water before the show in order to get him to calm down.
I'm remarkably dry, though, for that event having happened.
I'm going to need my blow dryer backstage, by the way.
Later.
So, but before we get into that big topic, and then we also have several kinds of articles and things that are in the political/social genre. But before we get into Westboro Baptist Church, I think we should talk about what has been using up all of our time lately. And I don't know who we started with last week, so whoever talks next.
That'd be me. A few days ago, I got my beautiful new phone. I love my phone. My phone is fantastic. I got the Galaxy S4, and the hype is true, people. It's awesome. It probably doesn't hurt that my last phone was all jacked up, power button didn't work, battery drained really fast, and it randomly turned off for no reason. Which, of course, my brand new phone does none of those things. All those things function as normal. But I love it. I've only had it for a couple of days, but I think when the laws allow, I'm probably going to marry him.
Sequoia.
I always feel like mine's so boring. I'm trying to go back to school, so I've been doing testing and appointments and
boring. Next person.
I know it is boring. It is boring,
education.
so.
You're in America, Sequoia.
It's even better because I'm going to be an anthropology major, which most people when I start talking about anthropology, they're like, "That's the reason I quit school." So I'm like uber boring. But that's been eating up most of my time lately.
I didn't know you were going to school for anthropology.
Well, I am not yet, but I will be.
Oh, okay. like a cultural anthropologist or like physical remains type anthropologist?
Cultural anthropologist.
Okay, like modern cultural anthropology or?
Well, actually, my emphasis is going to be in human sexuality, evolutionary and modern.
Okay, all right. I'd like anthropology. That's why I'm asking. I had no idea about the human sexuality part until now. I'm more interested.
Yeah. Now he really likes anthropology.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a field. I'm going back to school now. I didn't think they called it education anymore. I thought they just called getting more debt.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of how it feels going into it. But
you can't just say that or no one would sign up.
They make it sound really good in the videos.
Of course. It's like anything. So what about you, Justin?
My store has been getting ready for inventory that is tomorrow. For those who don't know what it's like to work in a retail environment, maybe you should be nice to people who work in retail environments. because there's a lot of stuff you don't know about that we have to deal with on a daily basis. On a yearly basis, we have to do inventory, which is, in our case of our company, we actually have an outside company that comes in and counts all of the crap in our store, and then says, hey, these are what your system says you're supposed to have, and this is what we actually physically counted, and then that affects, you know, what kind of, how the store is performing, basically. So that's been eating up a lot of my time this week. However, I've been, I've had Plants vs. Zombies since like February on my phone, but I've just been playing a lot of it because I finally got, my children are screaming in the background. But
wouldn't be a podcast without that in the podcast.
I know. But I've started playing it because I finally got to the endless one on my phone. I've had it on my Xbox for a long time, but on my phone, and so I've been trying to figure out how many flags I can survive. I'm like, the best I've done is like 20 or 22 flags. I can't remember.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Video game
just
stuff.
Waves of
Nice.
zombies.
So a wave of zombies is a flag?
Yes.
Getting zombie educated today, and I thought I knew shit already. I thought I knew stuff already.
Yes, so that's basically what's been eating up most of my time lately. James, do you want to dive right into Westboro, or do we need to ease into this?
I think someone else should start off, but I just do want to say that, you know, in our intro we talk about how we want to learn how people think the way they think and all that, and I'm not sure how well I'm going to stick by that in this one because there's a major gulf of disagreement between me and this particular group of individuals. I think there's a major gulf between that group of individuals and the majority of people on the planet. But if someone else would like to give some sort of intro to it, that'd probably be better.
Okay. Sequoia, do you want to, or do you want me to take it?
You can go ahead on this one.
Okay. All right. The Westboro Baptist Church is a, James does not consider them a church, right? And you don't consider them a religion or something to that effect.
It's not my place to put that distinction on something one way or the other. But I know that there are some group or groups that are trying to get their church status and the tax exempt stuff and the benefits that come with that taken away. And I think that is probably the proper course.
Yeah, which is a complete other kind of conversation in terms of that. But anyway, the Westboro Baptist Church, if I recall my history about it correctly, and I'm not looking this up, I'm just my own knowledge of it. I believe that they started becoming very vocal in the late 90s, maybe the early aughts. But when they really got into the limelight was just after September 11th, was when they started doing the protest that God hates America. Before it was just, God hates fags. They were GodHatesFags.com. Still are. Yep, that's still their main website. And it's actually pretty interesting because a week ago or so, when I posted on our Twitter that our next conversation was going to be about Westboro Baptist, they actually favorited and or retweeted our tweet.
Really?
Yeah. So,
you know what we didn't do? We did not send this out, so nobody.
So nobody's coming to watch because we're too busy talking. James is going to go ahead and get on that. I'm going to do that
right now.
Anyway, so they actually retweeted and favorited our tweet, which was interesting. I mean, I didn't say anything other than that we were going to talk about them. So anyway, just after September 11th was where they kind of changed their focus. They still are very God hates fags kind of thing, which obviously fags they use it in a derogatory term for gays, not they don't like cigarettes.
Especially British cigarettes.
Yeah, but so they changed kind of their focus to God hates America, and they used the September 11th attack as an example of, because we are a society that is becoming more and more secular, is becoming more and more accepting of homosexuality and other, sins. that God is raining down His wrath upon us, as He has done with as He had done for Sodom and Gomorrah in the Old Testament and other biblical stories and those type of situations. So that's really where they've been. They've protested at soldiers' funerals who have come back from fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. They pretty much, you can actually go on their website and get a list of all the places that they go to protest. They carry very much the same types of signs: God hates America, God hates fags. Even pointing out, like saying things like, I'm pretty sure that they have a sign of Princess Diana from back when she was actually killed, arguing that Princess Diana is burning in hell, and they have these weird sorts of, well, she's friends with this person and that person supports homosexuality, and so she is a fag enabler is what they call them, because she doesn't outright say homosexuality is wrong. But they are very fixated on homosexuality, but in general, they basically, from what I understand, pretty much think that their church is going to heaven, no one else is going to heaven, and I'm fairly certain that they think that that basically God, His hate is a very holy thing, and that it's that if you actually talk with them, they will say that God hates you, but we love you. I mean, we love you because we're telling you about these things, that this is what's taking place. So that is a very sort of brief kind of background on Westboro Baptist. I have my thoughts about some of the things, and I think James has some great thoughts that I really want to get to. But before that, I kind of want to give Sequoia an opportunity to kind of get her thoughts in and or any articles that she's got for Westboro Baptist.
Okay, well, I'll start off by saying that I guess the thing about the Westboro Baptist Church that gets me the most is I just don't understand their stance. Like, if you hate homosexuality, why would you protest soldiers' funeral? Like, I feel like they just pick whatever's going to get them the most publicity. Like, I almost feel like sometimes I feel like it's a really, like, dedicated prank or something, because it just makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, if you really, really hate, gay people, I feel like there are places that you would go to target gay people, and I feel like it's really just about, we're going to be the most annoying pricks on the planet half the time. And I mean, homosexuality has always been around. It always will be around. It doesn't occur any more or less than it used to. It's just that we are now more accepting, and I think we should be. But the only article that I really found on it was about, actually, the Satanist Church held a pink mass over the grave of Catherine Idolette Johnston, who was the mother of Fred Phelps, the founder. And the entire aim of the pink mass was to declare that she is now gay for all eternity. So, and I also know that one man recently bought the house across the street from the Westboro Baptist Church and painted it rainbow. So I think that they're starting to get sort of a strike back. I think people are kind of sick of their shit, stuff, what have you. You can go ahead, because you look like you're chomping at the bit.
No, yeah, James, why don't you go ahead and fill us in on your feelings. Be warned that we may have to cut you off just so other people can talk.
That's fine. If we need to have a talk about puppies break, you just let me know. Okay. So the Westboro Baptist Church has attempted to and successfully protested funerals. Like, to protest a funeral of, like, a horrible serial killer is one thing, but they protest the funerals of children. They protest the funerals of military veterans. Things that should be solemn events. They are the reason why certain states actually have laws against protesting funerals. Like, who would have ever thought that there should be a law on the books preventing you from protesting a funeral? But yes, because of the Westboro Baptist Church, several states have these laws. The Westboro Baptist Church is not allowed in Canada or the UK because they announced they were going to go protest a funeral in Canada and something else in the UK. I don't remember what it was. But basically, the countries found out about it and they're like, no, you can't bring your crazy here. You are not allowed in our country. Those people are not allowed. They're not allowed in Canada. Canada doesn't keep a lot of people out, as far as I know. They want you to come visit. Canada's a nice place. But okay, so a lot of times now in the modern world, now that a lot of people really know who the Westboro Baptist Church is, they've been doing this a long time, spreading their, endless ignorance as much as they attempt to, at least. There's almost always a counter demonstration. And when Sandy Hook happened, which we talked about early in this podcast series, they announced they were going to go protest those because they said that those children, that tragedy happened because Connecticut had legalized gay marriage or whatever had happened in that time. So Anonymous tore down their sites and put the call out for people to come out. Firefighters and policemen from New York banded together and went down there to prevent that from happening. You'll never get close to these funerals kind of attitude. And the Hells Angels went and said no. Now what else on the planet could possibly bind those three groups of people? I mean, really, and in one article I read, I guess there was one counter protest where it was actually Westboro Baptist Church was on one side and there's a group of people on the other, and part of that group was the Ku Klux Klan. Talk about passing the torch. You know what I mean? The Ku Klux Klan is you guys are effing crazy. No, we don't even, we're they, oh God, I'm going to get all worked up. I'm already all worked up. But really, I mean, to even think about protesting a child's funeral and saying that they died because their cousin's uncle was gay or whatever tenuous tie they have to their hate is just so unacceptable. It's so unacceptable. You can't do that. People can't do that. Normal people would never even think about doing that. I don't care how much you dislike them. You could be you could be the worst racist, and it could be a child who is a product of a black and white marriage, and that child was a product of it and died. And I don't care how much of a racist you are, you're not going to protest that funeral. No matter how deep that hate runs, you would never do that. You know what I mean? Not that racism is any better than the hate that these people spew, but to bring it to that level is just confounds the mind that anyone would ever do anything like that. Their first protest was actually in '91. They claim they've protested in all 50 states. They claim tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of different protests. They do 6 protests a day.
Yeah, they do a lot of protesting. They fly all over the country, pretty much protesting.
Yeah, which takes all the meaning out of it. You know what I mean?
Where do they get the money to fly all over?
$250,000 a year is what I read on Wikipedia. They spend $250,000 a year to protest. Now,
where do they get that from?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think that they're very communal in their church. The people who are involved, they give a lot of their money to it. But my guess is that there's a lot of people who fund some of it, and I'm fairly certain that Shirley was a very successful lawyer for many years, a constitutional lawyer for many years prior to really taking up the mantle that her father, Fred Phelps, is the pastor of the church. But Shirley is the one who's the most vocal. I mean, she's the one that you'll see out on the picket lines. She's the one who goes on the daytime talk shows and things like that. The father does, the patriarchal Fred does not. I actually on my YouTube page have a Louis Theroux documentary of, it's called The Most Hated Family in America. It was produced by the BBC, and Thoreau spent, I think, a week with the Westboro Baptist Church, and he talked to Fred once, where he was promised that he would get an interview, and he didn't really. I mean, Fred was very antagonistic toward him, wouldn't answer any questions, would claim that he answered a question when he had just said, he hadn't actually answered it. He just asked another question in return. I mean, it was very, very antagonistic. There was no information. Thoreau was like, I don't even understand. I'm trying to talk to you, and you like, I mean, it's when you're trying to have a conversation with someone, like you're actually trying to have a conversation, and they are just adamant about not having this conversation and just shutting it down and just being completely irrational. You're just like, I don't even understand what's going on. I'm just trying to talk to you like a human being, and you're just shouting at me about nonsense. And that's basically the conversation.
You basically just explained the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent. I mean, I've seen videos of people going and talking to them on the street. They will quote Bible verses and things like that. I mean, as someone who grew up as a Christian, later was an evangelical Christian, and then 6-7 years ago admitted to my atheism, I can understand how they can interpret biblical scripture in certain ways. The Bible is a very large book written by many different people over a period of hundreds of years, and so and then edited, and certain things kept and certain things not kept, and then translations. And so there is a very vast sort of interpretation that you can take from it. And when you're talking about stories and proverbs and things like that, the amount of interpretation that you can get out of it is fine. I mean, I've actually heard people make the argument for completely different verses that mean, I mean, the same verse but completely different, opposite ends of the spectrum interpretations of what that verse means. For example, since we're talking about the Westboro Baptist Church, one of the verses that they like to use is that a man shall not lie with another man as he does with a woman. And I've heard that used as an obviously anti-gay, but that verse is also used as not so much as a pro-gay, but as a saying that has nothing to do with homosexuality being wrong. What it's actually saying is that you're not supposed to have sex with another man in the missionary position.
Like more instructional?
Yeah, like instructional. Like if you're going to have sex with another man, as some gay people do and they're part of our church, that's fine, but you have to do it in a different... I mean, which to a certain extent, that was common. I mean, for sexual instruction to be in religious texts. I mean, you have to have sex this way, not this way. You know, you can do sex this way, but not this way. And that was very normal. And so to think, hey, maybe it is actually supposed to be instructional for homosexual relationships and not the other way around. But, I mean, all that matters is that you're talking about a religious book that is open to interpretation, that have conflicting verses, that is being used to argue for gays, that homosexuality is being wrong, because that's really the push of Westboro Baptists. It always comes back to homosexuality. They talk about other things, but in general, I mean, it's because of this, God is pouring out His wrath.
I find it so nonsensical. I mean, it's sort of like whenever any big disaster happens, I feel like they come out and say it's because of gay people. And I mean, they're not the only ones. There are other people who did other televangelists, stuff like that.
Pat Robertson.
Thank you. I couldn't remember his name, and I didn't want to be floundering for it. Yes, Pat Robertson does the exact same thing, and it makes no sense to me. There is no connection at all. How can you possibly believe that natural disasters or random the bad things that happen in life, when bad things always happen, are the cause of gay people? How that doesn't even they don't even have like real evidence for it. It's just bad stuff happens.
I wouldn't even
that's
say
what
that.
I get out of it when bad stuff happens.
I would say they have no evidence for it. They just have a belief that it is the case. They have a belief that's not based on anything but faith. There's no evidence. I mean, how would you even test that?
Well,
how would you test a hurricane? Sorry, James, go ahead.
Well, I don't even know if faith is the right word. It's just like a horrible prejudice where they immediately presume, you know? It's
I use faith in the definition that faith is the reason you give for believing in something when you don't have evidence for it. That's my personal definition of how faith is used. If you don't have a reasonable, if you don't have evidence for why you have a belief in something, and you have to rely on faith. Faith is that reason, which you have no evidence to support what your belief is.
Yeah. Either way. Oh man.
Now.
Makes me angry.
here's where we probably are going to differ, because I hate the Westboro Baptist Church's message. I think it's horrible. Even when I was a Christian, I thought it was horrible. Even as an atheist, I find it appalling that there are actually religious people out there that are going to preach that that there is a God, and not only does this God exist, but he hates you. You know, and if you don't follow these commandments, he's going to do really bad things to you. I mean, even if I was going to invent a religion, I wouldn't invent a religion like that. Yeah. And yet they have this religion. The problem is that, and this is where we'll differ, in the end, they have a freedom of speech. Even if they have...
We do not differ on this. I saw where you're going. I think we are agreed on this, and it pisses me off even more. But continue on. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that even if your ideas are batshit crazy, even if you think that child who died in Sandy Hook died because God is pouring out his wrath on a fallen nation that is given... What was that?
Children.
Yes.
Not child, many children.
Many children, yes. Or the thousands of people who have died in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, even... Is thousands right, or am I? I think thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Not or the thousands who died in the tragedy on September 11th. To say that that's as a cause of a God who is pouring out his wrath on a secular nation because we've turned away from him. They should have that. You can't stifle someone's freedom to express that opinion. It doesn't stop us from saying, what the fuck is wrong with you that you actually think that that's the case, you know, because we have that freedom as well.
Right.
I do agree, though. They can't stand in the middle of a funeral and do it.
No.
You know, and I completely agree that their voices, especially in a funeral, something that is a healing. I mean, it's sacred in the sense that it's an opportunity for us to begin that healing process when we lose someone. Their voices should not be heard in the middle of that. If they want to protest it, they can protest their ass off about it. But the mother who's crying over the child that she lost does not need to hear it. It does not need to see it. Unless she chooses to hear it or chooses to see it.
Right.
They should have that opportunity to insulate that. That I don't see a problem with. And our government has shown leeway. I mean, our judicial system has allowed leeway in limiting freedom of speech to an understandable level.
Right.
So there you go. That's...
Well, I know the day after 9/11, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but some guy showed up at the Phelps residence, stood across the street with a sign that just said, "Not today." And in within a couple of days, I don't remember exactly, 100 and some odd people ended up joining him, and just basically silently protesting that you don't get to say shit today. You know what I mean? Like, you keep your mouth shut. We don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? And, you know, like, I completely agree. They have the right to say it. They absolutely should not be allowed to be able to protest a funeral. No one should be able to.
Well, they can protest the funeral, but I'm saying that they need... protesting the funeral is one thing. Interrupting the funeral and interrupting that healing process and that sacred event as much as, you know, I don't like the word sacred, but for all intents and purposes,
right.
Interrupting it is completely different than having the opportunity to protest it.
Yeah, I don't know where the line is exactly for me. I know I find it appalling that anyone would even consider that, except for the most extreme of us. You know what I mean? Like, as far as people you'd protest, like the most extreme of like serial killers and like the worst of us. You know what I mean? Like that, you know, and we could probably leave it out of that too. You know, there's plenty of public places and forums to, you know, stand up for something you believe in or talk about something you want to believe in without doing it there. Because, I mean, even with someone like a serial killer, maybe that mom is still alive that remembers that little kid. You know, whatever. That's a whole other podcast, I guess. But, yeah, they have the right to say it. I agree. Protesting funerals I find despicable. But there's one thing, as I was reading up, you know, trying to get a little more informed about it earlier today, that really kind of stuck with me is, in a lot of ways, all of the shit that they push out into this world, all of like the horrible insinuations they make about people, like the prejudice they pour onto people, just the hate they put out there in the world, in a lot of ways, it brings out the best in some people. Like that group that came out the day after 9/11, like the one guy thinks to show up, and then that brings 100 more. You know what I mean? To say no, you don't get to talk today. You know what I mean? Like, it's not you never get to talk, just not today. You know what I mean? And the groups that came together for like Sandy Hook, you know, that, you know, Anonymous, you know, the police and firefighters in New York, and the Hells Angels. There's actually a group, I don't remember their name, there's a group of bikers that are all former veterans, let me see if I can find the name of it really quick, that actively drive around and...
They anti-protest.
Patriot Guard riders, yeah, the Patriot Guard
riders.
Patriot
Guard, yep.
And they specifically, you know, exist to counter.
Yes, counter-protest is what it's called. Yep.
Right. But you know, the groups that have come together to do that. You know, when 1,200 students show up because they were going to protest, I think some people that had passed away at University in Arizona somewhere, college in Arizona. But like 700 to 1,200, they said, showed up to like prevent them from getting there. You know what I mean? And like those kind of actions, you know, like it gives me goosebumps when I was reading it. You know, to just think of, you know, like as much hate as they're spewing out, there's like tenfold that in like people that are going to say, no, we're not going to let that happen to these people that maybe we don't even know. We don't even know these people, but we're not going to stand for that. We're going to go there. We're going to stand in between your hate and these people and let them have whatever that day is, whatever moment is they have. You know what I mean? And that, you know, that's awesome. I mean, it's unfortunate that that has to happen, but I find it amazing that it does. And the more publicity the Westboro Baptist Church gets, the more of these situations arise. People are like ready, like, oh, Westboro's coming to my town? I don't think so. Like if they were coming somewhere local, I would go to counter protest. I mean, that's probably really surprising at this point in the podcast. But I would go and I would get as many people as I could, and I would stand between them and whatever they were trying to, you know, ruin or protest or whatever, all day long if I had to. You know what I mean? Because they have the right to say it, but if I can make it so the people that they're trying to say it to can't hear them, then I'm totally willing to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm just real quick, and then Sequoia, go ahead and chime in because James and I are kind of dominating for the last 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
I think that the local municipalities and the local governments do a fairly decent job in trying to make sure that they can maintain order in terms of keeping them at a distance that's fair. I mean, they will set up these are areas you can protest in, but you cannot protest here, type things to prevent the type of things where they're like standing right in front of the cemetery or something as the procession, thank you, is coming in, and things like that. I mean, I don't want people to think that it's like a free for all, and for the most part, from what I understand, obviously Shirley is a lawyer, knows at least the law well enough to be a lawyer and a relatively successful one. They do stay within the law for the most part. We can have a discussion over whether or not those laws are adequate or not, but they do stay within that law. Sequoia, by all means.
Well, I know what you guys were talking about before. Unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, but I mean, they do have the freedom of speech to say whatever they want, and they are allowed to believe what they're going to believe, as nonsensical as it is. I think they are probably, in America, the great equalizer, because there's like 3 things that are inevitable about every person. You're going to die, you're going to pay taxes, and, almost all of us hate the Westboro Baptist Church. I don't think that there's hardly anybody in this country who, like, has a way to stand up for them or, really believes in what they're saying. Like, it's like the Westboro Baptist Church and everybody else. So I have a really hard time understanding them, and a lot of times I'm just like waiting for them to be like, just kidding. Watch our sitcom coming out next fall.
Yeah. Biggest prank ever.
Yeah.
Well, in the one Thoreau documentary, and I'm fairly certain in other documentaries, if you're not engaging in a conversation with them that is overtly religious or about homosexuality or something, they're very nice people. I mean, they're nice. They're relatively fun to be around. I mean, they have a lot of fun with each other, and they had a lot of fun with Thoreau while he was there. I mean, he had some really great conversations with him. But there were moments where, like, the conversation would go from, what are we going to have for dinner, to, oh my, suddenly we're talking about homosexuality, and it's like, well, where did it come from? Why did this conversation even come up? And I mean, the only thing I would not turn down an opportunity if somebody from Westboro Baptist Church wanted to be on our show at some point and talk. I wouldn't turn it down. James, I see him shaking his head there. He's like, oh my God.
I just don't know, like, if I could maintain the I think you think standards. I don't know if I could. I mean, I would like to believe that I could. You know what I mean? I would like to believe that I could. But I don't know if I would be able to do that. Because overall I'm outspoken, especially about things that I consider to be ignorant and hateful. I'm not going to, like, we have this podcast and we do our best to, like, just let the ideas and thoughts flow, and this is just what we think, this is just what you think. In that scenario, though, I'm not sure if I could hold to that. I don't think I could. I think it would be adults only with the way my language would get. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, hopefully I would be able to control myself. But I do agree it would be an interesting test to see my own personal willpower.
I feel like that would need to be your vacation week.
That would have to be an I drink, you drink. Speaking about I drink, you drink, we're going to do an I drink, you drink episode in 2 weeks, guys. 2 weeks. On video, you'll get to watch us all get drunk. It'll be lots of fun. It was last time.
This time I may wear pants. No guarantee it's possible.
So, yeah. And it'll be Sequoia's first I drink, you drink. So, there you go.
Well, at least one that went on air.
Right. That's my normal Friday night.
And Tuesday.
But, James, I know, but you're really interested in continuing to talk about Westboro Baptist, but let's move on. if that's okay
It's
with
probably
you.
no. That's a good idea. I just want to say fuck the Westboro Baptist Church, and I just leave it at that.
There you go. I
I
have
like
a
you
couple.
really tried to hold that back.
You know, I did, and then I realized I couldn't follow through with this podcast. So saying at least once.
By the way, just in case you didn't know, this podcast has adult language in it. So.
Yes. And James has a potty mouth today.
So I've got a couple of articles. Sequoia, you also grabbed a couple. James just bared his teeth and was ready to just yell about the Westboro Baptist Church.
I stared at my computer and grumbled and muttered under my breath like a crazy old man.
I'm going to start off with something a little fun, and then Sequoia, you can jump in with anything you've got. But I've got this one that I heard about this and I thought that this was fun, and I think it's nice. Well, I mean, it's almost good for a laugh, I suppose, to a certain extent. Not in a bad way.
Let's not build it up too much.
I know. Okay, so here's what it is. America is no longer the most obese country in the world.
What?
We've lost that position. We were number one, and we're not anymore.
Okay, now is it because we lost weight, or is it because another country gained more?
It seems. I think it's a combination, probably, of the two. But you'll be surprised who is the most obese now. It's actually Mexico.
Really?
Really. Mexico has taken the number one slot. They ripped it from our hands.
They took that Whopper from us.
Yeah.
Sort of like we took California from them.
Yes, and Texas.
Podcast wasn't going to be around. We were talking about Westboro Baptist Church, but when we talked about other countries being fat, he showed up.
So yes, Mexico is now the most obese country in the world. America is still a close second. So there's always the opportunity. I'd like to say that I did my part by losing over 50 pounds.
You were the tilting point.
The catalyst. I think I was. I really was.
Because you went under 200. They're like, we did it.
We did it. It's down.
Now we only get the silver.
So they go into like basically Mexico is 32.6% adult obesity. And America's adult obesity rate is 31.9%. So there you go. So we are just under by tenths of a point, guys. We can do it. We can get it back. Just eat.
Well, I had chocolate cake right before this,
so you've done your part.
I may have actually tilted it back in between like dinner and now.
Do you have a chocolate cake or a piece of chocolate cake?
I had a piece of chocolate cake.
Then you potted in, we're talking about like 0.7%. So maybe if you would have eaten the whole chocolate cake, you could have brought us back. But
well, I made a whole big thing of it to share with other people, so maybe collectively that one chocolate cake is like what we needed.
See, she should have brought it on the I Think You Think podcast. So she goes, here, this is for you. I'll eat it for you, but this one is for you.
The best part is it has red, white, and blue sprinkles on it, because America. So we're taking it back for America.
Oh, nice. I'm glad that article went over so well.
You could put it on Instagram so it can spread like wildfire, and we.
So Sequoia, what do you have another? Do you have an article?
I do have an article,
and then you just sign off. That's
whoa.
Wow.
The article, and the mystery will reign out.
Yeah. I wonder if she closed her window, or here she comes. Now to apologize. Hold on.
She's not super tech savvy. So.
Hold on. I'm gonna have to you make sure you unmute yourself first.
Yeah. Can we just not talk about what just happened?
Not talk about what?
Let me guess. You hit the X to get out of the Google Hangout.
No, I just opened it in the same window. Unfortunately.
Brilliant.
Moving on. Mine actually has to do with government subsidies of junk food, which
interesting.
is partly why we were formerly the fattest country on the planet. But really it's about corn subsidies, which probably angers me almost as much as the Westboro Baptist Church angers James. Corn subsidies make me crazy angry. I said almost. I didn't say as much. I said almost. It's close. Corn subsidies make me really, really angry because it's a huge waste of money and it completely, like, it's awful all around. It's why our food industry is so screwed up. And when I found the article, because it's specifically talking about Twinkies in the article, and
which are back, people. Twinkies are back.
Not
they are
quite
back.
yet, but they are on their way to the shelves.
And these Twinkies are made with 17 taxpayer-subsidized ingredients. 17 ingredients and a Twinkie are subsidized by the government for a Twinkie.
Well,
and yet things like corn,
or things
like apples.
We need the Twinkies.
Twinkies are, especially if we're trying to get back fattest. I mean, we're right there.
That's why they brought Hostess back when they found out we were second. They were like, we need more snowballs for the ho-hos.
But I actually, like, when I read the article, because I've always wondered, like, what is the argument for corn subsidies? So I, like, went on this big search to try and find an argument for corn subsidies and why we should have them. And there are none. There are none out there. I did not find a single argument as to why we should still be subsidizing corn in this country. Other than that people don't want McDonald's to go away.
Well, don't we use corn in things? I mean, we actually use corn in
corn on the cob.
Well, right. I mean, like the traditional things, corn on the cob, and like corn, obviously, and like those types of things. But also, we use it in all kinds of cereals. We actually use it in manufacturing for things. Cardboard actually uses some corn.
Cardboard and cereal are pretty much the same thing, actually.
Well, yeah, depending on the cereal. Some cereal's not that bad.
If you look at the ingredients list, they're pretty much fine.
But like, I'm not sure where they. But don't they use corn, like oils from corn, in order to do some of the E85s and things like that, right? Or
it's used for ethanol. It's used in a lot of different things, but it is so subsidized at this point. And the problem is that the corn subsidies have been sort of ingratiated into the food industry to the point that, you know, any animal product that you buy in the store, that animal has been fed corn. And these animals are not designed to be fed corn. And it completely screws up their, you know, the way that they're functioning, and it makes them sick, so we're feeding them antibiotics. And we're keeping them in packing houses because we're trying to keep them from getting sick and feeding them antibiotics, which means that those antibiotics are going into our food, and the packing houses are a bad environment. And it just goes down the ladder. And, like, we spend millions and millions of dollars every year for the subsidization of corn. And it's a flooded market. There's no even if there's an argument to keep it for the ethanol, it's still so much that it's not being used for its purpose anymore.
I thought that I had heard, and maybe I think it was in a documentary I was watching, that one of the reasons for the corn subsidies is it's actually more expensive to grow the corn than they actually can sell it for, and if they don't get the subsidies, then the farmers would actually get out of corn production because there's no money in it.
Well, the thing is that because of subsidies of things like corn and soy, farmers have gone from being, can't remember the word for it, complex farms, basically, from having several different types of produce on each farm and several different types of animals, into being singular production companies. And that is sort of a problem because you're not getting, you know, they're not rotating crops anymore, you know, animals are not being treated. It's not that they're not being treated humanely, they're not being, you know, they're not able to live the way that they're meant to live. They're not able to eat grass. They're not able to, you know, poop in the yard. Like, it's all, like, you know, screwed up.
Not like us humans.
Exactly. You know.
Well,
which, you know, you should probably try only pooping in your yard.
I just use the neighbor's yard.
they've
No
turned
wonder
it
you have no
into
neighbor.
they've turned food production into like a warehouse type thing.
Exactly.
They warehouse the livestock and things like that. Do you think that has more to do with like our culture? I mean, and how many people we have on the planet that we have to feed, and the fact that we focus so much on meat and not enough on grains and
Well, it's
fruits and
not
vegetables
just
and
about the meat either. We're also talking high fructose corn syrup and all the byproducts thereof.
right, yeah. Because
And
everything has high fructose corn syrup in it.
exactly. Like I at one point, because I've been except when I eat at the restaurants that I work at. For the most part, I have been trans fat free for years. I don't buy a single product that has trans fats in it. I tried going without any high fructose corn syrup, and unless you literally stay at home all day and do nothing but cook, it is almost impossible to cut high fructose corn syrup out of your diet. I've tried. It's really hard. It's really hard because it's in everything. It's in everything. I bet if you went into your pantry or your refrigerator right now, it'd be on like 99% of the things that are in there.
My new phone is 33% high fructose.
So if he's ever trapped somewhere, he can eat his phone.
But
It
Sequoia,
won't-
I wouldn't.
That he would.
It wouldn't provide him any nutritional value.
I
But
died
it might
checking my
taste good.
Pulse newsfeed.
I feel like it might be more valuable to him to use it to call for help. But, I mean, if he got desperate enough, you know.
No.
There's been a lot of talk of, like, plane crashes and survival.
So I've got another article, and you know what? I'm okay with us going over a little bit this week, only because it took us a while to let people know that, hey, there's a show going on. Because obviously none of us know how to let people know it's not just us talking. Well, I mean, it is, but I mean, this is for other people to listen to as well. So I've got another article. And it doesn't piggyback at all on top of what we were just talking about, but I thought it was cool.
Good job.
Yeah, I know, right? It doesn't at all. It's like
Yeah.
a completely different way to go. So this one comes back from this was an article that was written on July 8th, so it's about 10 days old. Sorry, but in Massachusetts. I think it's Massachusetts. I was trying to find it. Okay, I'm not going to look for it too hard. There are. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if his computer froze for a second.
this is riveting, guys. This is riveting. Okay, so there are legislation. I'm just gonna wing it. There's legislation that around the world, different states, different cities, some countries, not the entire country, but parts of the country, are trying to pass legislation banning saggy pants. Like when people droop their pants. Drooping is what it was called when I was a kid. I don't know if they still refer to it as drooping or just sagging. Whatever. Basically, it's where you wear your pants down short ways and expose your underwear, your boxers or something like that, and so that's just a style. It's a style that reportedly originated in prisons in the United States as a way of showing that you were interested in. I'm going to say this, and then somebody's going to be like, no, that's not true. That's what people say who are trying to argue against drooping your pants. Yeah, but that if you were accepting or interested in a sexual relationship, that you would droop your pants and show off a portion of your butt. Assets, nice. So anyway, yes, there you go. But it is a style and a trend now that people do. I don't. but there are people who do. And so they're trying to get these legislations passed that actually ban them. So this is, they say it's like a freedom of speech thing, that it's violating their freedom of speech to do this. My thought is, it's clothes. I mean, really? This is the kind of legislation we're going to spend time on? Is like, what in the hell is wrong? I mean, honestly, I would just start marketing pants that had a pair of boxers sewn to the top of them, and then just say, okay, well, I'm wearing pants, or I'm wearing underwear underneath these boxers, so I'm not in violation of anything.
But, the problem is, if you start banning that and those people start wearing normal pants, you're not going to be able to tell who those people are anymore. At least now you can just see them because of the way they're wearing their pants, and you don't have to worry about it because you know right away.
Well, and not to mention, if you ban them, James is going to have to buy a whole new wardrobe.
Nope, all I need is one belt.
And it's done. So we were talking about violations of First Amendment freedom of speech, which is why I found that article
There's your time.
rather humorous. That, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. It seems silly to me.
If you ever look up ridiculous laws, there's always I think in one town in California, there's technically a law in the books that you can't wear a skirt that goes over your knees, or there's always these ridiculous, and a lot of them are sort of from the past. And it's clothes. It doesn't really matter. I don't know. If people want to droop their pants. Hey, I am a hippie, so.
Well, I mean, that's actually a conversation that can be had. I mean, there are decency laws that say that you can't basically stroll around nude in public.
Oh, that explains a lot. But, yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the line, though. I mean, it's a social stigma or whatever, It's a social standard to, actually wear a minimal amount of clothing, at least, when you're out in public. But beyond that, I could never get behind a law like that. I mean, I think it's silly to where you're, I was reading an article on my Pulse feed about some guy who carjacked a car, and then the cops tried to chase him, and he didn't get all the way through a yard before his pants fell down on his ankles and he fell on his face. So I say let them wear their pants like that. It makes them easier to catch when they do dumb things.
Well, one of the things that they were talking about is that the law, one, is unfair because it unfairly targets minorities, because minorities tend to dress like that. And so they are saying it's a, I don't know how much it's necessarily a civil rights issue, as it's just a law that's specific. The only reason that they're even considering it as law is in order to target minorities so that they can arrest more of them. I mean, it's almost prejudicial in that case. Yeah.
That's weird because I feel, I mean, and maybe it's because I live in suburbia, but I feel like I see more whites doing that, And I thought that was kind of outdated anyways. I didn't feel like it's as much a modern thing, you know what I mean?
That's what I was thinking. I remember being that really, really big back in the 90s, and I can't even remember the last time that I saw somebody dressed like that.
Yeah.
I remember being yelled at by my grandmother because I didn't wear my pants with the waist up by my belly button. I had them down on my hips, which is the comfortable way to wear pants. And she used to say, "You don't have your pants up high enough." And I used to be like, "This is the way everybody wears their pants." Who wears their pants up at their belly button?
You're like, "Graham, stop being crazy.
Stop being a crazy lady." So, Sequoia, did you have any more articles that you wanted to touch on?
I had one more, and it's about how...
Is it a hippie article?
You know what? It actually, I can't even, argue it for myself. It's about how because of the legalization of marijuana in several different states, they are now doing all kinds of testing on marijuana to make it better. and I mean,
That
it's
is
mostly
hippie. This is a really, really hippie article.
I know. Well, the thing is they're saying is that because it's like legalized in a lot of states as a medicine, and it's completely legal in a lot of states now as a recreational drug, that they now have to do testing on it to make sure it's safe. So,
and by a lot of states, she means like 3.
Yeah,
for a recreational.
Hippies don't really know numbers.
I grew up in
It's
California.
either more than one, a lot, or why don't more states have this, which is 1 or less.
Like, to be completely honest with you, I didn't realize how big of a deal pot was anywhere outside of California. Because in California, it's like, well, whatever, everybody smokes pot. It's like what you do. It's not a big deal at all. And then I like started moving around, and I'm like, okay, pot is like a big deal other places. Like, if you get caught with pot, you can actually go to jail.
Yeah.
Like, that blew my mind. Like, it was not a big deal. And
I think she grew up in a commune, Justin.
Westboro Baptist Church commune.
With a lot of
No way.
It was a marijuana-based Westboro Baptist.
We hate sober people.
Everyone should have pot all the time.
We
God
hate
hates
porn
not being
subsidies. But they are doing all kinds of testing on it now. And they're talking about how if it's going to be used for medicinal purposes, it should be organic because they don't want any pesticides on the pot.
We are really getting hippie now. I only smoke organic pot, man. Seriously. I only get my stuff at Whole Foods.
I don't shop exclusively.
I hate that corporate kind of pot. Tastes terrible.
They actually they just shut down all the dispensaries in California.
That's because it's federally illegal.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which has been a huge battle for years. Yep. Like, it's legal up to a point in California now, but it's federally illegal. Therefore, they can come in, and even with like medicinal marijuana, they can come in and cut it all down whenever they want.
Yep. And they do. They tend to do. They will do it. I mean, they'll just like, hey, suddenly the DEA shows up and.
Yep.
And they're like, this is illegal.
Cuts down all of it and burns like 75% of it. I don't know if that's true.
Keeps the other 25% for testing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, so, the more states that legalize, it looks like the better and better weed might get, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, James and I have had the conversation about marijuana, medicinal, and recreational use and the legalization of it. Previously, we should probably have it sometime with the hippie, and see, then we'll all be high by the end of it.
I smoke, you smoke.
Yeah, man. How long have we been doing this? Like hours? 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
God, I feel like I've been talking all day. It's been like 5 minutes. But
what's the subject?
You said
today?
one sentence.
The subject's marijuana. The only thing you ever talk about, Bob. Now I'm just rambling over here.
All right, the last thing I'm going to bring up, and we don't even need to talk about it. I just thought it was important that everybody should know about this. But Pastor Hagee, he's on par, well, not on par with the Westboro Baptist, but on par with Pat Robertson in his kind of craziness. His son, who is a pastor of a mega church, his name is Matthew Hagee, has said because of the DOMA ruling that happened, that's when the Supreme Court ruled on the Defense of Marriage Act, because of that ruling, that the rapture is about to occur. So the rapture is when for those who don't know, in Christian, I was going to make people mad by saying in Christian mythology, in the Christian religion, the rapture is what takes place either pre, post, or in the middle of the thing that I can't think of right now. The 7 years of stuff going on. Basically, when God does things, and Jesus either comes back before it happens, after it happens, or in the middle of it happening, depending on whether or not your church believes in a pre-rapture rapture, a mid-rapture rapture, or a post-rapture rapture.
I heard the post-rapture rapture was awesome.
Yeah. It depends, because if it's the post-rapture, then you have to live through the all of the tests, all of the pouring out of God's anger and seals and things like that. Yeah, not those kinds of seals. So he's saying that the rapture is going to happen very soon. I think when most Christians think of the rapture, they think of a pre-rapture in which suddenly all of the church is taken up to heaven, and then God does his thing, or the devil gets to reign. I don't know. I used to know it a lot better, and I just don't care. So there you go. So be prepared for a bunch of people to disappear.
Should I buy like bottled water and a generator?
No, because there'll be more stuff to go around because people will have disappeared.
Wait, am I gonna have to cover a bunch of shifts in my work?
Yes.
Shit.
I know, right?
That's interesting.
Actually, if you start hiring atheists or non-Christians, then you'd be okay.
What version of Christians, though? We shouldn't get into this. This is going to get bad. Never mind.
That's a whole other podcast.
So some random person has predicted that the rapture is coming soon, so
yes.
Prepare yourself or don't, depending on your belief system.
Depending on whether or not, yeah. So that's it. Thank you guys for joining us for this wonderful show. Next week we will be getting into pop culture, so whatever that kind of entails, the things that we are interested in talking about for next week, and then the week after that is the I Drink You Drink special podcast, in which it will by the end be I Drunk You Drunk. So thank you for joining.
May stand up and fall down again.
Yeah. Is that what I did?
Right after the podcast. Yeah. You texted me. You're like, dude, I just stood up and then I fell down. LOL.
Nice.
And I did, like on command. I literally laughed out loud.
Nice.
It was hilarious.
So, I'll let the other two wrap up, but thank you guys for joining us. Please like the video. Please share the video with people. Like the podcast when the audio gets out to you, and share it with people. Let people know about the show. Email us, ithinkyoutthink2012@gmail.com, with any show ideas, anything you want to tell us about. We do get your guys' email. We appreciate it. And thank you very much for listening. So there you go. If you guys want to wrap us up. James started, so Sequoia gets to finish up for us.
I feel like I should say something like, eat organic. Yeah.
Fuck the Westboro Baptist Church.
I don't know how to wrap up. Bye.